So basically, it came from wanting to make a film, as simple as that. I mean, it was like I realized it was during the pandemic. Obviously, a lot of us, I think, especially in the creative side, had probably an itching feeling during the pandemic, during the lockdown, uh, that they didn't want this to stifle their creativity, and so kind of on the back end of that, coming out of it, I got back into films in a big way because I'd studied film at uni, film theory, and it was and like I love it. I just I'm absolutely crap at it, but I love like reading stuff about
Why are you
film.
crap at it? Sorry
But
to jump in.
I'm writing about film. Like I love trying my best. But it's like I love watching films. I love like analytically thinking about them. And anyway, so I realized something during the pandemic, which was that I'd lost that aspect for a few years. So I got back into it, just film watching, just trying to catch up on a lot of kind of classics and cult classics, and kind of like the very like celebrated AFI top 100, Sight and Sound top 100, whatever, films that you want to sort of dig into. Anyway,
YouTube reviewers bread and butter, basically, just they go through these 100 films and you're almost guaranteed to get clicks. But then again, they are great films, so fair play.
It's true, exactly. And the more controversial ones you can throw in there, like or just like getting those listicle ones where you can just people will say, why isn't so and so on there, and yada yada. Anyway, so it was getting back into cinephilia in just a big way, and I've like as we were saying before, I've kind of been filmmaking, commercial filmmaking, or creating as occasionally quite cinematic like skits or sketches, shorts, for many years, but never quite taken it to the next level, which was to say creating something, a small crew, just an independent film. And I started writing a couple of ideas just coming out of the pandemic, a couple of feature films, and then one of them actually one of them was not Everyone Forgot. I'd written a different short, which I might end up kind of trying to pursue and to make at some point, but there were all these challenges. I mean, one of the things that they say in terms of getting into filmmaking, especially you want to do it on a budget or no budget at all, is to write with what you have access to, and the short that I'd written posed some challenges to that. And then around March 2021, I nearly missed a good friend of mine, I won't say whose, 30th birthday, in terms of just wishing them happy 30th birthday, because we'd sort of we'd not fallen out of touch at all. We still occasionally message or whatever, but we just see a lot less of each other now than we used to, which is a real shame. And I nearly missed her birthday about and it got to it was like 11:45, and my wife turned to me literally in bed and was like, oh, that it's her birthday, 30th. And I was like, oh shit, better message. And it was a bit of a weird one because I wanted to sort of make a joke of it, but then I was like, all right, I didn't want you to think that I'd actually forgotten about it. It's just one of those things that happens, and actually since then I've now put hers and like all of my close friends' birthdays into my calendar, just so that I just don't forget. The other issue is that I'm not on Facebook, so there was actually like that was the thought that happened. So it was like, I'm not on Facebook. Why am I not on Facebook? For a reason, because I sort of like during the Hook time, that was all we were on. That was what we were operating on, and it was just I could see it degrading as kind of all social media eventually does now, and the fact that it's just just what humanity has become, and like it just kind of annoys me on different levels. The more if I think about it for too long, do you know what I mean? So anyway, I don't really.
Sorry to jump in. He's opened the door to social commentary questions.
Yeah. So
time not.
Well, I mean, It's interesting because like I feel I'm hoping, hopefully, Everyone Forgot sort of does that. I mean,
I was going to say, I feel that in a lot of your. I think that's what resonates with me about some of your work is that it does have, even if it's very superficially layered, it's there because it's so obvious to everybody, and yet no one really has a way of saying it in a way that conveys the frustration that we all feel with it. And that's what I think is hilarious about Everyone Forgot, but also Most Annoying Person on the Internet. Like, both of them, they're situations we've all encountered, and yet it's fostered almost entirely by this very odd construct that we call social media, that we allow to govern social interactions when, no, we're the ones that are supposed to tell social media how to act. And yet it's a weird symbiotic relationship that seems to be parodied in your projects in a more overt way, but it's still said in a way that impacts, and that's why I think that they work.
It really is social media, controlling us. I mean, I've even had lines in rap battles about it, like against Dialect and Zen. I went on some like big tirade about like people like just overshare, but really. Like in retrospect now I look at it like, okay, maybe that was like kind of funny or whatever, and sort of like just shocking, bit, fine, but in reality what I really think is it's like, let people be people. I mean, if they want to use people can use social media as a coping mechanism, then that's fine. It's okay. It's more like the overarching fact that is the case of humanity now, is that we are reliant on these technologies for be it a coping mechanism or be it whatever. So
anyway, sorry, back to Everyone Forgot. Sorry to do.
So I was going to say, so those two ideas sort of fused in my head actually, because I was like, well, the reason I nearly missed this person's birthday was purely because I am not on Facebook anymore, which tells you when everyone's birthday. And previously I'd been relying purely on Facebook for that. I still have an account, I just never go on it. Anyway, so I use Twitter, or X now, which is much worse, arguably. So anyway, the fact was that these two ideas merged in my head because I was just like, well, and then something just started forming. It was really as simple as that. It was like literally the next day I wrote the script. I wrote the first draft of the script. It was like I woke up, I went to bed that night thinking of the idea, and this is the worst one because you can't get to sleep at night properly when an idea starts trickling through your head. 100%. And you just start going, what, and the cogs are whirring, and it happens with bars all the time, with like battle bars as well, all the time. Anyway, in this particular case, it happened with the short film idea. I just wrote it. I didn't know how long the short would be. I knew it would be kind of a short film. I just conceived the idea of like a woman whose birthday is a significant milestone, 40th birthday, because I thought of Anwen straight away as well. That was the other thing. I'd worked with Anwen on some stuff for The Hook. She'd been on a couple of Hook sketches, and she's just brilliant. She's an amazing actor. And her talent on screen as a performer is matched only by her talent in networking, and being able to just like zone in and go. It's very similar to you actually, to go in and to chat to somebody and just and be yourself and be like upfront and kind of make things happen. And I'm working with someone, my creative filmmaking partner here in Reading as well is a lot like that too, and I'm working for a production company at the moment, with the head of that is just brilliant at that, and I've always just admired that that talent. So anyway, so when we were shooting these sketches for The Hook, she started speaking to me. I was directing them, I just got her. We struck up a conversation there. I got her information if I ever had anything that might down the line make sense. And this was like 3 or 4 years later or something like that. And we'd occasionally exchange messages, but hadn't really gone beyond that. And then just the next day I was like, well, if I write this script, if Anwen's free, maybe she'd be interested. And luckily she was. and she was interested. So yes, I wrote it with her in mind. I didn't have the Ben character in mind in terms of who would play them yet. And then, but she actually brought on James, who plays Ben, and he's just brilliant as well. He was just in a production of Sam Shepard's True West, which my wife and I went to see as part of the Camden Fringe, and it was brilliant. He is really, really good in that as well, so I should give that a shout out. But anyway, so yes, so Everyone Forgot. So how does that come about? Yes, so I just wanted to make a film. That was the main thing, right? So, and I wanted to work within and just sort of challenge myself to do it, really, because I kept on, like, it was always this thing of like, just in the back of my head, I'm a filmmaker, or I'm a director, I can do this. Now, when I'm given a budget, even if it's quite small, for places like The Hook or Lab Bible, wherever, I'm sort of a contractor, that's fine, but that's a little different, because obviously, like, but if I can kind of write, produce, direct and then and as part of the production assemble a team as well, it would just be an interesting challenge to myself. And I was just fascinated by the medium of film, as I always have been, and something cool and something interesting. So yeah, I just couldn't have done it without really the wonderful thing about it is that you get in touch with people. This was obviously off the back of the pandemic, so people did have a bit of a creative itch that they wanted to scratch, I think. But I'd obviously built up a little bit of a network anyway, and so I just kind of got in touch with people who I knew might have an interest, or the worst they can say is no, sort of thing. And then I'm just really indebted to just so many, this brilliant team of 20 people that I was able to kind of assemble. It's that thing of a bit of a domino effect, where you get in touch with one person, they're like, I get in touch with Yannick, my DOP on the project, and he was like, well, I can get a great gaffer in, and he did, and I can get a great focus puller in, and he did. And so you don't, once you start you get in a couple of key people and then they will get the bulk of the technicians that are going to kind of be involved in the project. But yes, so the themes of obviously the theme of the social media thing in Everyone Forgot, I think, was also something that kind of interested me, and I suppose still does, as we were just saying. So it's this idea of like social media obsession. If you don't get any birthday wishes on your Facebook, then or as we called it, amigo, just in case, just to get around the copyright issues in the film. But yeah, like this idea that it's sort of taken over our lives a little bit to that extent. And so I wanted to make something which kind of wrong foots the audience a little bit. You feel a little sorry for the character. And then of course later in, things obviously turn on their head as to what we've actually been watching.
So I didn't want to give anyone like spoiler warning-esque, because if people haven't seen it, and you mentioned the sort of the twist, but I mean you can go into films knowing there's a twist, but not knowing the twist still makes it entertaining.
I found it quite interesting because we were really lucky to get accepted to quite a few festivals on the short film festival circuit. We won a few awards as well, and one of the ones we got, a couple of the ones that we got accepted into that were horror film festivals. So like we got into Fright Fest. The film was screened at the Prince Charles Cinema, which is probably my favorite cinema it is my favorite cinema in the UK. But that also implies that I have favorite cinemas overseas, and so maybe it's just my favorite cinema, full stop. Anyway, we were lucky it got screened there, and anyway, I just find it quite kind of funny there is sort of an element to the film which we want to conceal, which might be spoiled by the fact that it's got into horror film festivals. Do you know what I mean? And maybe that's all we need to say. But I
I certainly anticipated that there was going to be a moment where something happened that would turn the tone of it, because that was the thing about Everyone Forgot. While I was watching it, the first thing I noticed was the sound design. Like, even something as minute as the birds chirping while she's smoking or trying to smoke a cigarette that won't light. So it's just kind of, it's piling on this feeling of the whole world's fine, this woman isn't. Isn't that how social media makes you feel sometimes? That the world, everything in the world can be absolutely fine, but because of this one thing, it's ruining your life. And imagine if you didn't let it for a second, and like, how much different would your perception be? Obviously, that's not how the film ends up going, but the point is that I loved that little sound cue, which is to kind of let you know that something's wrong, something's not quite right in this scenario, because she should be reacting differently to how you or I would feel in that moment if presented with this scenario.
Well, thank you first of all so much for just even picking up on the sound design, because that's one of the elements that can easily get overlooked. We were lucky on one of the festivals to get they nominated it for sound design as well, which I was really like chuffed with. We didn't win it, but I didn't mind. I was just like, this is so cool that even just someone's like recognized my sound design on this. Is like one of the elements that you just don't, like, you're not supposed to sort of notice as much, but even if you do, it's kind of intentional on a either conscious or subconscious level, just depending on how you. It's a
storytelling device. It's very critical, and often it's like a lot of things people use with sugar. It's, well, if I just throw in a lot of exciting stuff, it will sound exciting. That's not how that works. But if you use it liberally and you use it to accentuate things that you want to do maybe later, it can really help lubricate the feeling of an audience towards where you want them to go, without them even really understanding why or how that's happened.
That's the intent, definitely. And I was lucky I had kind of an inner circle of collaborators during the edit process, and I was able to, there were 20 versions of the cut that I did. Anyway, a lot of this was building on the sound design as well, and that's kind of both the score, the music, and just the Foley. I mean, it wasn't even really Foley, it was just, sound design. So it was just, sounds that I'd either have created or, kind of just tweaking elements that I downloaded from places and kind of making it all mash together. But
you also use it in different ways, by the way. Sorry to jump in again, but the fact that you've used it for its intended purpose at the beginning, like I say, the dichotomy of the storytelling that you're trying to invoke, but then also later on for comedic effect, like the thunderclaps. It's horror movie-esque, and it's meant to be like almost it's almost meant to be almost close to a parody, where it's like, now this is the scary bit. Well, of course, there's a lightning clap. Like,
and then you realise
it made me laugh, because it's like, well, of course, because it's turned, and it's now it's meant to invoke those feelings of, oh, okay, I'm in a horror situation now, but there's still something comedic in nature, something that's there just to let you know it's still kind of absurd.
Well, absurd is the right word, because the horror is artifice in that moment, because she's just got it on telly. So for there isn't even a thunderstorm, she's just got it on the TV for no reason, and so he just goes, "Can you turn that off?" And she goes, "Oh, I thought it was, kind of nice or whatever." And so I'm glad you picked up, because the sound then changes. So you've got all the low frequencies in the thunderclaps and the thunderstorms, and then it sounds like it's actually happening, and then all of a sudden the whip pan to the TV, you realise that there's a that she's just playing off air. We went for like a tinny kind of sound with it. But as I was saying, it was kind of, I was lucky to have that kind of group of collaborators where I could just like throw them in, and they'd and I'd say, like, after they've watched it once, say, what do you think of the sound? Did anything jump out to you? Did it jump out to you too much? Is this too much? Can we like pull it back a little bit? This is why it took so long to do an edit on a 20-minute film, but also just purely my own. It was just a huge learning curve film. Everyone Forgot. It was, that there are so many things I've learned from it that I will take on to my next project, whatever it is. I see those all as you know, purely just net positives, and
anything good about
little
it that,
things. Yeah.
Was there anything about it like you got to do for the first time that felt really great, like or just something like you've always wanted to do as a filmmaker, that with your own film you were able to go, do you know what, I can do this now, so I'm going to do it? And even if you at the end like, oh, okay, fair enough, there's a reason I wouldn't use this in certain projects, like, you know, in my line of work, you know, the one thing I'd love to have is almost like radio DJ-esque and have music spinning in the background with sound effects and an air horn and stupid shit just to help raise the comedy level. But there are interviews where that wouldn't be appropriate. So you go, okay, it's nice to have, but I won't use it for everything. Is there anything in a filmmaking context on something like that that you really got to use for the first time, or you were excited to be able to be introduced to, or anything along those lines?
I mean, purely just the freedom to be able to take 10 months to edit it. I mean, I could also not have finished it even today, and that wouldn't be fun for anyone else but me, because I'd just still be laboring over this edit. And there was a little bit of, I think subconsciously, but now I think about it, you know, maybe I think there was an element of not wanting to let go of the project, and that's why it took so long to edit, because I was like, well, I created 20 versions of the film. There's actually like 20, you know, albeit slightly different, but different versions of the cut that exist, and that means that I was able to just continue that process for like kind of, you know, 10 months until, you know, in the back of my head just constantly saying, all right, this has got to be the one now, this has got to be the edit, this is the one that needs to be, oh no, but there might be, you know, copyright issues with that music or whatever, so we've got to change it. But that also then has a knock-on effect, which changes the next scene and the next scene. So anyway, I think the freedom with the edit and that being the final stage of the rewriting is a key one. I mean, the biggest example of that is there was an entire scene in the middle of the script that we shot, where the two characters are sat on the sofa in a different room, and she goes up and plays with the jars of soil over the top of the mantelpiece. And there was a whole monologue that Anwen had, you know, for that, and there was a whole kind of back and forth that the two characters had, which, you know, I wrote it. The actors did an amazing job with just, I think, just quite shoddy writing, and I wasn't until I got it into the edit where I was like, this is just ham-fisted and shoddy writing, and like it also, I prefer the mystery of not having any of this spoken. So there's a couple of moments. There's a kind of middle montage section in the film which includes those moments where Ben says, I quite enjoy doing this. No, it's nice, you get to meet people, you know, and she sort of goes, people, like that, and he goes, I didn't mean it like that, you know, and it's a bit more, it just, nothing is on the nose, you know, but you just are kind of getting enough that you need to in the characters to understand how the dynamic is developing. And that was kind of all I wanted. So you realize that I'd spent, you know, 4 or 5 pages writing out this scene as part of the film, which, by the way, would have made it about like a 26-minute film instead. And it just wasn't working, and it just sort of was drawing a bit too much attention to the jars and the soil and everything like that, which we only needed a couple of shots towards the beginning to kind of, you know, give that kind of context of, this is like, I don't want to spoil it, but, you know, anyway, so that stuff could have been, I mean, you know, it's brevity, isn't it? It's just keeping it as brief as you can to drill home the same points, and that ultimately was a realization that I could not have come to had I not had the same amount of time, or given myself the same amount of time with the edit.